I'm gonna admit right off the bat that I've never really been big on the civilization kind of game. There's nothing wrong with them, they've just never really grabbed my attention or stood out very much in the massive mountain of games that exist that do grab my attention. That said, I am a pretty big fan of Amplitude Studios' other title, Dungeon of the Endless, and while I didn't have very many expectations from that one at first, it left me surprised and frankly hooked. So, on a whim, early on in development, I decided to snag a copy of Amplitude's hex-based strategy game, Endless Legend. And at first, I was entertained, but a bit underwhelmed. The game's actually been out for a while now, has had about 5 DLCs launched, and I had no internet for 2 weeks, so I decided to dive into it again and check out how the game's development has gone in the past few months. Frankly, I'm pretty f***ing impressed. I actually find this to be a bit of a difficult game to review given my lack of experience in this genre, so I don't really have a basis of comparison. Keep that in mind as I make my points. The basics of the game are this. You choose one of the 10 playable factions if you have all the DLCs, each with their own traits that affect any number of pretty much everything possible in the game. Thus, each has their own playstyle. Then, you select the world generation methods that you want to use, you set your difficulty, and then you configure any AI that you're going to be playing with. It's worth noting that you can also play with friends, but I haven't walked down that path yet, so we're not going to talk about it. Once you're in, it's a game of technological advancement and diplomacy. You'll spend turns planning city and empire expansions, sending out settlers to establish new cities, building units to defend yourself or attack other factions, queuing up a bunch of scientific research, exploring the world, and engaging in political banter and other types of political and diplomatic exchanges with the other major factions that you'll come across. Oh sure, that sounds simple, you'll say to yourself. Yeah, alright. On a base level, it's not that complicated. But look at all of these screens. There's a lot of reading in this game, and aiming for victory asks that you put at least some consideration into the path that you take. Now, onto the nitty-gritty. First off, the game's entire visual design is awesome. The playable factions are all distinct in their unit design. All of the painted-looking visuals mesh really well with the 3D models. It's easy to tell when something in the world is important, though not always why, and the clean UI that Amplitude Studios loves to use in their games finds a really nice home here. I do wish that the UI were a bit more customizable. As you progress through the game and complete various researches, you'll actually unlock more and more things that you can have your cities build, and that little window down on the bottom left becomes a pretty big pain to scroll through when you're trying to find something. The game itself is pretty slow paced, and it's actually kinda relaxing. I'm sure when you really get up there in turn count or in difficulty settings, things can get pretty insane, but I'm quite content playing on the normal difficulty and taking my time as the various factions I meet decide to close their borders to me. There's a quest system that has you hunting down artifacts in the world or building specific expansions in your empire. Some quests you'll pick up as you explore or try to assimilate minor factions, others you'll get because of the faction that you play with. The writing on each of the quests, and frankly everywhere else in the game, is awesome. It adds a lot of flavor to the world that Amplitude is building here, and I'm pretty grateful that they took the time to flesh things out. The quest system itself is a really good way to get the player to explore the world and to teach them about various bits of research. I really dig it. There are special units known as heroes that you can get in a few ways, the most common of which being hiring them off of the marketplace once you have it unlocked. These units are just really badass. They can be assigned to govern a city or to lead an army, and they provide different bonuses depending on which one they're doing. Some heroes are better suited to one over the other, but they're always a good thing to have. The hero units and any other units that you're gonna make have the capability of leveling up, but with the hero units, you actually get skill points that you can spend on upgrades to grant more bonuses. Each city produces resources for your empire. Food, industry, science, dust, and influence are all used to expand in some way, and if you want a city to focus on one over the others, you can assign parts of the population to focus on its production. Food is used to keep a city's population alive, and without specific researches, this is the only resource not shared across your empire. Having this in high production will also allow your city to grow faster and survive easier during the winter when food is harder to find. Industry and science are just used for research and building things. Dust is a catch-all resource. It's a currency as well as something that things are crafted from. And as a fun fact, it's a unit that's actually shared across all of Amplitude's games. This stuff is magical as hell, and it's required to maintain the upkeep of your empire, to produce new units, and for trade. You can also use dust to buy out the production of a unit in a city's building queue, making it available on the next turn instead of many turns from now. Politics are a strange part of the game that I haven't really gotten the hang of yet. You use influence points to interact with major factions that you've met, and most interactions can be described as peaceful or aggressive. I wasn't joking earlier when I said that every faction had closed their borders to me either. I want to chalk it up to me just not really understanding the diplomacy system in this game, but I will say that the tutorial could stand to actually cover this and give pointers. And before you naysayers say anything, I was not being super aggressive. I left a couple of compliments and then I left them alone and then they closed their borders to me. I don't know what's going on there. I guess I'm a baby. Combat is the last really big thing in Endless Legend, and it's a bit weird to explain. When you pick a fight with an opposing army, or if they pick one with you, you choose the kind of strategy that you want to take, and you can also choose to manually control the battle, simply watch it, or skip to the end. When you manually control the encounter, it becomes a top-down turn-based strategy game. You position your units before a combat, and then during combat, you can switch between strategies and target enemies for attacks. All units get placed into a turn order based on their initiative stat, and then the turn plays out. Part of me wishes for a way to practice just combat with various units to learn their strengths, yada yada yada, but it's a well thought out enough system that it could actually probably be a small standalone game, to be completely honest. Endless Legend is a very slow game. Everything is turn-based, and things like research and construction often take a very long time to complete. If you're not exploring or expanding, it'll often be a lot of simple clicking the end turn button until your next research or building finishes, and it can drone on at times. It keeps me hooked because the universe is so interesting and there are so many different ways to play. I mean, I spent the better part of an entire day just playing this game without even realizing it. I missed my lunch and I almost missed dinner. So if that says anything about the quality and enthrallingness of this game, then, you know, there you go. I want to say it again. This is definitely not a game for everyone. The tutorial does a pretty good job of explaining most mechanics and systems, but even still, there's a lot of reading and learning and waiting, and anyone that decides to take the leap is really gonna spend a lot of time figuring out the nuances behind everything. You can pick up Endless Legend on Steam for about 30 bucks with a few options for DLC packs at varying prices. I think if you're a fan of Civ or strategy games in general, then this may be one for you to take a whack at. And you know, if you're not too interested in Civilization, maybe check this one out. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Indie Bytes. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more stuff like this. Be sure to check out the other content that we put out on this channel, and remember to drop me a line here on Twitter or through email with any game recommendations that you've got. You can find all that stuff down in the description below. I'll see you next time. Bye!